Giants head coach Joe Judge, coming off that win against Seattle last week, talked about dealing with Russell Wilson last week and now Kyler Murray this week.
Yeah, first thing I'd like to say is these are two very different quarterbacks, but they bring with them the same element of running and passing. They're both very, very dangerous, very explosive. They create a lot of plays with their legs and their arm, and they make everyone around them a lot more dangerous because of multiples they can play with. To me, the biggest thing against playing against any mobile quarterback is always discipline. Discipline within your rush, discipline within your run defense, and discipline to finish your coverage down the field as they're scrambling. Now, if they get into space, you have to do a good job of holding leverage and tackling and finishing the play. Again, that's easier said than done. We practice every week. We put a great emphasis on our fundamentals with tackling, and that's improved as a team for us. But a guy like Kyler Murray, he's made a lot of guys miss throughout his career, especially throughout this season right here. We have to do a good job of tackling him in space, all right, and not giving up big chunk plays.
Now, Arizona's hit a little bit of a rough patch over the last couple of weeks, but they're still a good football team, and they can make explosive plays on each side of the ball.
Well, when you have a guy like Budda Baker on defense and a guy who does everything, the wonder kid, in their quarterback, Kyler Murray, you have to be as focused as you've ever been because they're an explosive team on both sides of the football.
Take a look at Kyler Murray. Leads the NFL in rushing yards for a quarterback, got 10 rushing touchdowns as well.
Well, the thing about Kyler Murray, he's got everything. He can throw the ball, he's fast, he's elusive, but what you have to be is disciplined when he scrambles. You see here, you've got a defender who can pin him in here. He's got a pretty good angle to do that, but the one thing that Kyler Murray gets everybody with, let me take it back a little bit. Watch the little head fake he gives, the inside nod, just to freeze him so he can get out to the outside. He does this on scrambles going both left and right, and that's a coaching point because if you're going to get upfield, don't let the little head nod throw you back and he gets outside of you.
Yeah, and that was the Hail Mary pass to Deandre Hopkins that defeated the Buffalo Bills a couple of weeks ago. All right, Carl, what do you have dialed up here?
It's the same thing going the other way. You just, when you get him bottled in, and it's just hard, you get to the same level, and then he just gets through, gives you a little head fake inside just to get the angle. So you've got to be able to bottle him in, make him a pocket passer.
Deandre Hopkins is the youngest wide receiver to ever get to 700 receptions. And, Carl, he is a matchup problem.
He's a matchup problem because he doesn't feel there's a ball that's uncatchable. Take a look here. He does an in-route adjustment here. Ball's in the air. He's pinned to the sideline. Look, he just stops, turns back and gets the football and has the presence of mind to stay in bounds.
So you're going to have to be physical with him, aren't you?
You've got to be physical with him, but you've got to battle him throughout the entire play. Here he is again at the top of the screen, and you'll see just how he feels that every ball is catchable. You'll have a safety that can come over and give some help. He's going to warrant that, but just watch when the ball's in the air. He just knows how to play it. And he has no fear. You see the safety coming over? He makes the play. And we'll see a little close-up of that. His focus and concentration when the ball is in the air is second to none.
Yeah, and he's a really good route runner, Carl, too, although on that play he didn't have to run a route. He just ran.
Yeah, he just ran. But when the ball's in the air, he feels he can catch it.
All right, let's go to the other side of the ball and take a look at the Arizona Cardinals on defense. And it feels like every couple of years they got a new stud on defense. Budda Baker is the guy.
Budda Baker is the guy here. You've got to be very good at disguising what you're going to do. Now, they're in a cover two, but Budda Baker has to read these two guys in their cover two because he's responsible for a guy coming up the seam or someone coming out. Watch what happens when he sees the number 3 guy, this guy to the inside. Watch and see what happens. When he sees that guy go inside, he jumps right away and knows exactly what the route's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, he gets interceptions, he gets sacks, they play him up on the line. I mean, he's an extremely versatile player.
Very active. He is their catalyst. He's their lightning rod. And then on defense, they'll give you the amoeba look too. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a possible 7th guy, all standing within the line of scrimmage. Nobody with their hand in the dirt. So the Giants are not the only team that can do that. Now, if you run this through, it's a matchup problem because they drop 4 out and they still bring 4. You got enough guys to block them, but these guys here, they got to know who they're blocking now because everyone that was over the top of them dropped out. And there goes a guy off the edge.
So we're going to go above the numbers and tell you who the Giants need to step up to beat the Arizona Cardinals. David, why don't you go first?
I'm going to start off with Sterling Shepard. If you look at this Cardinals defense, they have struggled in the passing game, short and intermediate and in between the hashes. Going back to last week's game against the Rams, 20 targets at Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. They caught 18 of them for 158 yards. If Sterling Shepard can be an integral part of this football game, it's going to allow this Giants offense to be flexible and third and manageables, which they'll need to be.
You know what's interesting, David? Last week, Shepard only caught one pass.
Yep.
That is only the third time in his career that he has caught one or no passes in a game. So talk about going above the numbers. He's got to get back to being Sterling Shepard again. Now, to be fair, they ran a lot of double tight ends and triple tight end sets, so he played the third fewest snaps of his career in a single game.
And I think he's going to have that bounce-back game up against the Arizona Cardinals. Who do you got?
Well, I'm going to go defense, and it's going to be Dalvin Tomlinson for me. Now, here's the deal. You always know that you want to make the other team one-dimensional. Well, Kenyon Drake has got over 750 yards rushing. He's 7th in the National Football League. But here's the deal. This is a guy who over half of his runs have come directly up the gut. That's where Dalvin Tomlinson makes his living. So you want to make sure that you're stout against this guy, especially in the red zone. Tomlinson's got to be the man.
No question. I think last week's game up against the Seattle Seahawks and Russell Wilson gave a blueprint of how this defensive line can attack Kyler Murray. We know in these last couple games they've been protecting his shoulder, but knowing that this is a must-win game, they're going to utilize his legs much more in this football game, and that's where Dalvin Tomlinson and this defensive line have to be penetrative in the run game and have sound gap discipline in the passing game.
Couldn't agree with you more, especially since Arizona's #1 in red zone offense this year.
And below the numbers, who do we got? What do you know?
You had to figure. Kyler Murray. David, this guy is a handful.
He is. He is electric when he has the football in his hands. His ability to extend plays outside of the pocket and get those scatters not only with his arm but with his legs. The Giants are going to have to gang tackle all over Kyler Murray in this football game and force some of those inaccurate throws that we've seen by him across the middle.
I'll tell you something else. I think it's really going to be a pre-snap key for the Giants, like what they did to confuse Russell Wilson of Seattle last week, because you want Murray to give up the ball. That's where he is least effective because it's his legs that cause the most damage.
No question.
In the 3-game losing streak the Cardinals are on, he has only run the ball 5 times apiece for a total of 61 yards. In fact, over his career, when he runs it 5 times or less, Arizona is 0-11-1. Make him throw it.
And we're joined by the touchdown maker, Stephen Baker. And Stephen, you were part of that 1990 team. You were a young player. What was it like being one of the young guns on a team filled with veterans and guys who had already won a Super Bowl?
Yeah, I got to tell you, Bob, watching them on TV and then actually calling those guys my teammates like Carl and LT and Banks. Dino Manuel and all those guys. It was like a dream come true. And like I'm sure Carl would tell you, we always played for the next man. I wasn't playing for myself in that Super Bowl. I was playing for Carl. I was playing for Johnny Cook. So it was great to be part of a championship team. And they had won the Super Bowl before, so they know what it took to win. And that's how we went about our business and practice as well.
Stephen, you know, the one thing that people always ask about is, what was the team, what was the locker room like? And you know championship teams are like family, but could you take our fans into our locker room and just know what type of family we were? We were sometimes dysfunctional, but always funny.
Absolutely. That's one thing that we miss as former players is the relationships that we had in the locker room. I have to say some of the guys in there were as funny as Dave Chappelle, man. We always were laughing, but when it came down to getting down to business, we put it all aside and we went out and practiced like it was game time every time. But I have to say Stacy Robinson, God rest his soul, was probably one of the funniest human beings I ever met.
Stephen, obviously you caught that big touchdown in Super Bowl 25. Take us through the play and how excited were you to have your number called?
Well, you know, I look back on it now, it's 30 years later, and I think like, wow, you know what? Ron Earhart called my number down there because the play is designed to come to me if we get man coverage. And I take a lot of pride in that he counted on me to make that play. And when they called my number, I got up there and I said, you know what? I'm about to run the best post corner route I've ever ran in my life right now. I've ran it 1,000 times, but this is going to be the best one ever. And I ran it pitch perfect. And all I was praying for was the line to block well, which they did. And Hostetler threw the ball before I came out of the break, which is key, because if I see him throw it, it's not going to work. The ball was already in the air, and I just went to it like a magnet, and there was no way I was dropping that ball.
Well, no way you could have dropped it, because you know we were going to have something to say to you if you did. But, you know, our accountability amongst teammates was another thing that defined our locker room. And just talk about the relationship that you guys had as receivers and the challenges that you gave each other each week in every practice.
Well, we didn't throw the ball a lot, as you know. We always ran the ball because Parcells always believed that if the game came down to who was going to win it, he wanted his defense on the field. So Mark Ingram and I and the whole receiving corps, we took it upon ourselves that we weren't going to be selfish players. We're just going to go out there, do our job. If it required us to block, we were going to block our tails off. I mean, if you look at the statistics, I believe Mark Ingram caught 37 passes that year, and I only caught 35. And we don't even care about that because we won the Super Bowl. It was just as fun going out there making a great block for Rodney Hampton or O.J. Anderson.
Stephen, you know, in the 80s, receivers started wearing gloves and DBs. Tell the story about those gloves that you wore at the end of that season and in the Super Bowl, because those weren't normal football receiver gloves.
No, they weren't. They were like the scuba type gloves. And I believe Mark Bavaro and I were the only ones that wore them. So you would get plenty of them. All the other guys used to want to be iced, as we call it, look pretty with the white ones with the blue on there. But I wore what would work. And I tell you, somehow those gloves would stop the rotation of that ball. The glove would keep going a little bit, give, and the ball would still stick there. So I got so used to them, I even used them in the summertime.
Stephen, can you believe it's been 30 years?
You know what? Every time I see the highlights, it don't seem like it's 30 years, but man, 30 years is a long time. And it's still fresh in my mind, especially when I see guys like Carl. I spoke to Pepper Johnson last week and Sean Landetta. I speak to Otis every other day. So it's like we're still living the dream, man.
Stephen, we appreciate a couple minutes. Thanks for joining us on the show, and happy holidays to you and your family.
Hey, and thank you guys very much. And you guys are my new Madden and Summerall, man. You guys do a great job. Thank you again.
Thanks,
right.
Nubby.
Is DeAndre Hopkins the best receiver that the Giants will have faced so far this year?
If not the best, he's got to be right up there tied with it, because there's not a ball he thinks he cannot catch.
DeAndre Hopkins is probably the best receiver in the league. Forget about who we face. I think he's very competitive. He goes against balls all the time. He had a couple years where he didn't miss a pass that was thrown to him. So, yeah, he's the best they faced this year.
The Giants taking on the Arizona Cardinals this week, looking for their 5th straight win, Sean, and they're going to see a familiar face.
Yeah, they are. And they got to protect the quarterback against Marcus Golden, who they traded for back in Week 8. Now, Marcus Golden, he's got 1 sack with the Arizona Cardinals, but 7 quarterback hits. So he's definitely getting some pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah, and Sean, he lines up primarily at right outside linebacker, which means Andrew Thomas will have the responsibility of trying to block him. He's played his best football in his last 2 games, has not allowed 1 pressure.
Yeah, Andrew Thomas has really grown by leaps and bounds. He looks so much more comfortable in his pass sets with his hands. Obviously, this will be a different matchup because he's going up against a guy in Marcus Golden who we went against in practice every single day. So this will be a very good test for his techniques and his skills. I'll say this, we talk about pass protection so much with left tackles, but Andrew Thomas in the run game has been phenomenal, John. He's got great movement at the point of attack. He's done a great job with all his combination blocks, and it seems like the game is really starting to slow down for him.
Wayne Gallman's big run last week, right around that left side where Andrew Thomas was at the point of attack. And you mentioned it, Sean, as a former player, what is it like when you're going against somebody that knows you the way Golden knows Thomas?
Well, first and foremost, the snap count. He knows the cadence, he knows the rhythm, so he knows if Daniel Jones likes to go on a hard 3 count or a hard 2 count. So the snap count, he's going to be trying to jump that. He also, I'm sure he remembers some of the calls. Offensive linemen, we're smart, but we use the same calls week in and week out. I think the one thing that Marcus Golden will try early on, John, is he's going to try to beat him on the inside move. That's something Andrew Thomas struggled with earlier on this year. He's done a much better job of that. No doubt that'll be a factor, but Marcus Golden, he plays a lot with it, out of a stance, in a 2-point stance. So that could be a little bit different for Andrew.
Let's talk about the Cardinals. They are 4th in red zone defense in the league. Why are they so difficult to punch it in against? You guys have been doing well at that lately.
Yeah, we definitely picked it up from earlier in the season. They have good athletes on their team. Budda Baker, he's really good safety they have there, and I think they just fly around. They have a lot of energy and put their heads to the ball.
You talked about Budda Baker, one of the most active safeties in the league, but the fact that they have a lot of guys standing up at the line of scrimmage, they're mugging a lot, they're faking a lot. How difficult is that for you guys to deal with?
It's just communication and getting everybody on the same page is the biggest part, and just knowing who's going to be the free guy because they bring a lot of zero, and who's going to be the free guy and who DJ's hot off of or Colt's hot off of, and just things like that. It's just making sure everybody's on the same page.